we go. Uh, hmm. Well, hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. And you guys are Biology 1208, Section 91, my Tuesday afternoon section of Biology Lab for science majors. And here we are today. We are actually in week 5 and going over the Kingdom Plant Day. Remember, we started this chapter last week. We did flowering plant tissues last week, and today we're going to go over a PowerPoint covering flowering plant anatomy. And then next week, next Tuesday's Mardi Gras. So y'all going to be Mardi Gras next Tuesday. So we're off Monday and Tuesday of next week. So 2 weeks from today, we'll finish up the plant stuff, and there's going to be another PowerPoint over flowers and fruit. And then the week after that, that's going to be the 8th week of class, and that's always midterms week, and that's when you'll take your practical. So your practical is 1, 2, 3 weeks from today, 3 weeks from today, which would be, like I explained earlier, how you take your practical. You Zoom, just like you're Zooming today, except you're going to Zoom with live video feed of your face so I can see you take your test. And at the same time, you're going to log on to my courses and just take your test. And it's going to be a 25 question multiple choice exam, and it'll open at 1 o'clock and it'll close at 1:30. And so you only have 30 minutes to complete it. But 30 minutes doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it'll be more than enough time. Most students finish in like 10 or 15 minutes. So you'll be good, I'm sure. So that's 3 weeks from today. So let's pick up and finish up our plant stuff. And I have a plant anatomy PowerPoint, and you have access to this very file on my courses. So you can study and practice looking at it on your own as well. In addition to viewing this Zoom meeting, which will be recorded and also posted on my courses. So without further ado, let's get started looking at this. getting some kind of weird messages. Anyway, let me fix my display here so it looks normal. Flowering plant anatomy, okay, and then as last semester, that's when I built this thing, but it's still good, and I went through it, and it still looks the same. What I had in lab were actual specimens that students produced to identify all this stuff, and so to turn it into a PowerPoint, I just have pictures of all this. But this first slide is profiling parts of a simple leaf, and these are the portions of the leaf that you need to know. Like the stem, of course, is that portion of the plant that supports the leaf, and the stem-like structure that supports the leaf itself is the petiole. And then the main body of the leaf is the blade, or sometimes it's called the lamina. And if you look in the center of the blade of the lamina, it looks like an extension of the petiole. That's the midrib. And in the petiole and the midrib, that's all the vascular tissue, the xylem and phloem that's going to branch out into the blade. And then branches of the xylem and phloem that are out in the blade, that's refers to the veins. And so petiole, midrib, veins, that's pretty much it. The margin is just like the outer edge. Apex is the tip. Base is where it connects to the petiole, etc. Secondary vein, just if you consider the midrib is a primary vein, I guess you can call it secondary vein. Just vein is fine. But the axillary bud is the bud that's going to form the new leaf next year, because in the winter, of course, on a deciduous plant, this leaf would detach and leave behind a little scar where it was attached. But in the springtime, this axillary bud would open and produce a new leaf. And that's basically it. Parts of a simple leaf, all right? Now here are parts of a woody stem. And you can see again where the petioles attach to the stem, etc. This is like a stem in growing season, and this one with no leaves on it, we call it a winter stem or a winter twig. But there's no leaves, the deciduous plant, the leaves fell off. And you learn parts of the stem, okay? Remember I said before where the leaf used to attach, and it produces, looks like a little face right there. But what this is the scar that's left behind from where the leaf was attached. It's a leaf scar. And you can see above that, there's where the new leaf is going to be emerging. That's the axillary bud. On the end of the stem, the terminal bud, now that's where the bud is going to open and produce new stems. So from here out, you can have new stems. So this is for a new stem. This is for a new leaf, and the axillary versus terminal buds. Now, these brackets identify portions of the stem that we identify as nodes and internodes. A node isn't really a thing. It's a region of the stem. It's a region of the stem where you have lateral growth. And basically you just identify that where you have the leaf attached. So here would be a node, obviously, because there's a leaf scar there, and there's another node, and there's another node, and there's another node. And then regions between the nodes where there is no growth, no leaves attached, that's the internode. So here's an internode, from here to here's an internode, from here to here's an internode, etc. Okay. And then you can also identify where the terminal bud used to be. And the year before that, remember I said the terminal bud opens and it's going to create a new stem from this point forward. Well, where a leaf leaves a leaf scar, terminal buds leave a terminal bud scar. And you can see that back here. See terminal bud scar, it kind of looks like a ring around the base of the stem. So from here to here is 1 year's growth. And so every year you're going to produce a new terminal bud scar. And so these are just parts of the woody stem where you can see nodes, internodes, axillary buds, terminal buds, leaf scars, and terminal bud scars. Okay, so that's all that. It's just kind of working your way around. Now, when we start to change things up a little bit, we'll talk about leaf attachment. There's two forms of leaf attachment that we recognize: petioled leaves and sessile leaves. Petioled leaves, if you see this, is basically just a leaf that has a petiole. You know, here's the blade or the lamina, and then there's the petiole attaches to the what would be the leaf scar or your axillary bud, right? And then versus a sessile leaf. Sessile just is where it looks like the blade connects directly to the stem without the use of a petiole. So that's where you see this, just like all blade, no petiole. That's this. So this would be a sessile leaf versus a petiole leaf. That's all it is. And so just some differences to see. Certain groups of plants will have different types of leaves. Okay. Now, remember we had monocot leaves and dicot leaves and monocot roots and dicot roots, et cetera, et cetera. Always comparing the monocots versus the dicots. And so here, you know, there's all kinds of monocot flowers and plants and so on and so forth, several different species. And so here we try to generalize it the best we can. And so here I have a typical, quote, typical monocot leaf versus a typical dicot leaf. And actually, there should be kind of reverse because this is the monocot, this is the dicot. But what makes monocot, dicot, if you look at the leaves? So remember, there was a table when we first started the plant section. It was comparing and contrasting the monocots and dicots. And it said that the monocots had parallel vein leaves. And this is just like a real photograph. You kind of look into, oh, these are all parallel vein leaves. And this is what they call a net pattern or a branching pattern, where basically you have a midrib and then leaves with the branching veins and so forth. You don't have that over here. This is kind of a net pattern versus parallel. So kind of standard. So anytime you see an arrangement of the veins like this versus this, it's good indication that you're looking at a dicot leaf versus a monocot leaf. So that's what that is. And remember, there's differences in the flowers too. So here I have a typical monocot flower versus a typical dicot flower. And remember, the differences were in multiples of the flower parts, okay? And so here, if you counted the petals, these are the petals 1, 2, 3, and in the background, these are sepals 1, 2, 3. Flower parts in multiples of 3, that's typically a monocot, okay? Now, flower parts in multiples of 4s or 5s is a dicot. So you count this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are 5 petals, and the sepals are in the background. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, multiple 5, you know, dicot. So this flower belongs to a dicot plant, and this flower belongs to a monocot plant. Okay. There's other differences too in the root systems. Typically, monocots have a fibrous root system, like you see right here, and typically dicots have a taproot system, like you see here. But there are some exceptions, okay? But I just wanted to show you a tap root versus a fibrous root system. And the tap root, you have a primary root that extends. It's kind of like a downward extension of the stem. And then you got secondary branches coming off of that. In the fibrous root system, it just looks like there's, you know, no primary root, you know, they're just roots scattered, branching every which direction. It kind of looks just as haphazard as the top, you know. That's like what you see in grasses and things like that. And here, less grass-like, and these are typically what you see a lot of your dicots like this. Okay, so monocot, dicot roots, tap versus fibrous roots. And then this slide is identifying different types of leaf venation. It's comparing and contrast the types of veins that you can have in leaves, and we have names for this. We already talked about this parallel vein leaves. That's typically what you see in a monocot plant with the parallel leaves running, or parallel veins running you know, adjacent to each other like this. And then these two, they're a net pattern, a branching pattern, but it's in two different types. You have pinnately veined leaves and palmately veined. These are both dicots with two different types of dicots. Pinnately veined leaves, when you have a single midrib, like extending from the petiole, like you see right here, and then the secondary branching veins coming off like that. Forms a pinnate. Pinnate means like a feather shape, it's kind of like a feather. If you drew a feather, you kind of draw it like that, right? Versus palmate. Palmate, if you look at it carefully, it looks like you have multiple midribs. So you got a primary. These are all like midribs. And then the branching of the midribs would be the veins, okay? And so anytime you've got this pattern where they're all kind of radiating out from a center location right here. So you got one coming off here. Here you get several coming off, okay? Like a palm, you know, palmately, get it? Palmately veined, pinnately veined, parallel veined. Three forms of leaf venation, okay? All right. Next is leaf complexity. Now, what you've been seeing so far are just regular old simple leaves, you know, and then they have just a margin and etc. Just whatever, simple leaf. But not all leaves are like that. Sometimes the margin is divided into leaflets. And so right here, what you see is a pinnately compound leaf. This is one leaf, and these are leaflets, but it's arranged in a pinnate pattern. Remember pinnate, you had like one kind of midrib and then lateral branches. So this kind of a pinnate pattern. It's a pinnately compound leaf, okay? This one says bipinnately compound. It's like it's compound twice, bipinnately, get it by? Like it's like the leaflets have leaflets. Like this is all one leaf, and this is a leaflet. And it looks like the leaflet has leaflets. And again, it has that pinnate pattern where you got a centralized petiole and little lateral petioles on the side. That's bipinnately compound, pinnately bipinnate. And then this one, palmately compound. And remember, like a palmately veined leaf, like this one, where it looks like you have multiple midribs. Imagine if this is broken down and divided into leaflets, it would have a pattern on it like this. Because you have these, this is one leaf, and these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaflets. They're all attached to the same point on the petiole, and that's what you see right here. Just like these, all these midribs are attached to the same part of the petiole here. So, you know, don't confuse the two types of leaf complexity, pinnately versus palmately. Palmately, leaflets are all attached to the same point. Pinnately, that's not true. You know, some of them might be, but many of them aren't. See, these are all attached to different points on the petiole. So there you go. Leaf complexity. Now, leaf arrangement is how the leaves are attached to the stem. Now, remember I told you about nodes and internodes and all that. And typically you think about, well, one leaf per node, but that isn't always the case. Sometimes you can have one leaf per node, 2 leaves per node, or 3 more leaves per nodes, and that's identifying different types of leaf arrangement. Right here, This is called alternate leaf arrangement. Alternate leaf arrangement kind of looks like they alternate, yeah. But you have, by definition, one leaf per node, because this is a node, this is a node, this is a node, this is a node, this is a node. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nodes, 5 leaves. Alternate leaf arrangement, okay? Now here's another stem altogether. And you have 1, 2, 3 right here, 1, 2, 3 nodes, but 2 leaves per node. And this is called opposite leaf arrangement. So if you got 3 nodes and it's opposite leaf arrangement, you would have 6 leaves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 2, 4, 6. Get it? Alternate, opposite. And of course, these are 2 different species and so on and so forth. Now look at this. Here you got 1, 2, 3, almost 4. So these 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There's many, many leaves per node. When you have 3 or more leaves per node, that's called whorled leaf arrangement, where they're all kind of whorled around together. So this is a node, this is a node, this is a node. This is from here to here is an internode, and from here to here is an internode. Just like from here to here is an internode, from here to here is an internode, from here to here is an internode, and so forth. So alternate, opposite, whorled leaf arrangement. Okay, so 3 basic types of leaf arrangement. Now, this last one is a really special, kind of weird leaf arrangement. It's called rosulate leaf arrangement, or it forms what we call a basal rosette. It looks like that there's a whole bunch of leaves attached to one central point on the stem. And that's true. It's basically the laser pointer here. Basically, the stem just kind of stops right there at the surface of the soil. So there's like one node, and you have one node with multiple leaves. And this is kind of what you see in biennial plants. The first year just kind of makes this basal rosette with a bunch of leaves, collects a bunch of sunlight, and stores the energy in a pretty heavy-duty taproot below. And then the second year, it takes that stored energy and makes a very aggressive inflorescence with lots of flowers, and lots of flowers makes a lot of seeds. So very aggressive kind of weeds produce basal rosettes like this. But anyway, this is called rosulate leaf arrangement. They produce this basal rosette. You may have seen something like a dandelion or a thistle or something like that that forms a little structure like this on the ground. Okay, so leaf arrangement. Next are modified stems. Okay, now so far, the stem was like 1/3 of the plant. Maybe you got roots and stems and leaves, and the stems were kind of like the go between, the liaison between the roots and the leaves, and that supports the leaves, et cetera, et cetera. But that's kind of just general. But you can have modified stems to do other things, okay? Here I identify 4 modified stems, types of modified stems. Like this first one, it's called a stolon. And this is the stem right here. There's the stem right here. And here's a node, and there's a node. And at the nodes, you look carefully, there's roots and leaves at the nodes. And the stolons, these stems run horizontally across the top of the soil. Sometimes they can go under the ground, but in most cases, they're on the surface of the ground. And this is like what you see if you identify runners on St. Augustine, like in grass, and you got little runners that grow. Well, those are called stolons, and you got roots and leaves at the nodes, okay? And so that's a modified stem. That's not normal. You don't have vertical stems. This is horizontal stems. Okay, now this one are called rhizomes. The leaves are above the ground. The stems and the roots are underground. And the stems are for like food storage. So the energy is actually stored in the stem, but the stem is underground. And this is common what you see in like irises and daylilies and things like that. They kind of have this heavy wood stock kind of material under the ground, okay? And with the roots and so forth attached to them. Now this, everybody recognizes what these are. These are like baked potatoes. These are like Irish potatoes. And when you harvest Irish potatoes, you actually harvest them from in the soil, okay? And so these are stems that are under the soil, but again, for storage. And so this technically, this big swollen thing that you call potato is a tuber, and the tuber is actually technically a stem, an underground stem. And the nodes, remember a stem always has to have nodes and internodes, etc. That what you call the eyes of a potato, you know, like where if you leave it in your pantry too long, it starts growing, you know, those eyes, those are the nodes. So this is a node, this is a node, this is a node. You actually see some growth coming out of these nodes. And then the portions of the potato between the eyes would be the internodes. But so tuber is a modified stem. And finally, this last one is called a corm with the M, not corn, corm with the M. This is another underground modified stem, but this is again for storage. If you section this open, there would be woody on the outside and a hollow cavity on the inside, and in that hollow cavity, starch is stored. And so the same material that kind of forms the potato is inside this little woody cavity, and that's a corm. And of course, you got leaves above that, roots below, and this is just right underneath the surface of the soil, right about here. Some wildflowers produce corms. Sometimes people will actually call them bulbs, but technically they're not a bulb, and we're going to see what a bulb really is. But a corm is a modified stem. What type of flower? Let's see. I don't know if you know, the blazing star or Kansas gayfeather or there's others, but it's a type of flowers that produce these where you just got these kind of green leafy fibrous kind of leaves above. It's kind of heavy duty spherical structure of corm underneath the soil. So these are all stems, okay? And of course you have modified leaves that take on other roles, you know, do different things. Here's your true bulb. A bulb is actually leaves, where you had a corm was a stem for storage underground. A bulb is leaves that are underground for storage. And each one of these layers, like you obviously recognize this as an onion, don't you? These are onions, and these are the layers of the onion that you would eat. You know, these are leaves. But underground leaves are called scales. So each one of these is a scale, but technically scales are, these particular scales are underground leaves for storage. So the starchy material is in the scales, and that's the part that you eat and enjoy. The stem is reduced to right here. So the entire stem of the plant is right here underground. Of course, you have roots that come out from here. So there's roots down here, stem, and leaves. And the above ground portion of the plant would be your green photosynthetic leaves, you know, of the onion or whatever. Onions and garlic and things like that form bulbs, okay? So a bulb is modified leaves, all right? Now this one, tendrils. These are modified leaves too. These kind of squirrely, curly, vining looking materials. Now these aren't vines. A vine is the entire plant, the actual stem and whatever. But sometimes leaves are modified for clasping or support. And so this structure right here, you can see that it comes from a node, and it has comes from an axillary bud, just like a regular leaf would, but there's no blade or lamina. It's just basically all petiole. And of course its job is to support the stem, you know, and so that's the climbing plants. You have tendrils, okay? Those are modified leaves. And you know what? I think that's it. This is a fast lab. Gosh, it took less than 30 minutes to do this, probably a lot less than that since I was talking about other material at the beginning. But yeah, that's all I want to talk about today. Ordinarily, like a normal semester, we would look at these specimens hands-on, but for your practical, I'm just going to show you pictures of these and then ask you like types of leaf venation, complexity, leaf arrangement, modified stems, modified leaves, etc. Think you guys can handle it? I think you can. All right. Do you guys have any questions about anything before? Well, next week you're off for Mardi Gras, and the week after that, we finish up flowers and fruit. Have a PowerPoint for that. And then that's it for the first half of the semester. So what y'all think? You'll handle that? No questions about anything? Y'all all good? All 7 of you? I guess everybody else is going to watch the recording. That's fine. Just study it however you want, as long as you study. Okay. No questions. Okay. Well, that's it for this week, and I will cut you guys loose and see you 2 weeks from today. All right. Happy Mardi Gras. Bye.